Hey, I'm Morgan, and this is the P.S. We Expire podcast.
You are not your thoughts. There's you, and then there's your thoughts. We suffer when we identify with our thoughts, when we believe we are them. And we hear it all the time in our language when we say things like, I'm anxious, instead of I'm feeling anxiety. That is an instance of identifying with your thought and believing your thought. And what the work does is it separates I from my thinking. And it tells us that we are not in control of our thoughts. Our thoughts are not personal. They just happen. It's just something the brain does. Water wet, sun shines, brains think thoughts. And when we recognize those characteristics of thought and question our attachment to thoughts, then we give ourselves, then we are free. We give ourselves freedom to respond sanely to the world and to run our lives with more mindfulness.
Okay, so the work introduces a gap between what I believe about myself and who I am and the thoughts that I think. So
Yes.
maybe
Well said.
a good question is then like how important is it for us to know who we are apart from our thoughts? And I guess like the place that my brain immediately goes is that everything that I can think about who I am myself is still just a thought.
Yes, you're right. When you mentioned that gap, Morgan, the thing that I saw was sky. When I tried to think of who I am, what I thought of actually was just sky. And this is an image I think that I learned from the Buddhists, like Pema Chodron and others. I don't know Buddhism very well, but what I learned from them is that our minds are as vast as the sky, and to think of thoughts like clouds that pass through. They just happen. They're as indifferent as weather. And again, the trouble starts when we attach to those clouds, which are ephemeral, really.
What I like about that metaphor is that there's like this immediate recognition that our thoughts are temporary, that everything that we think still is just, and it's just right now, and it's not going to be there in a second or two. And so that's what it feels like to me too, is like this embracing of the temporariness of it, and there's something that does endure, and that's the self, and the thoughts are the things that are temporary that come and go.
Another feature of the brain, which I'm sure you know, is that it is associative. And so thoughts often occur like as a cluster, or we start telling stories that just build and build and build on the original pain point. And so the work helps us to just recognize what we're doing, that we're attaching to thoughts and creating suffering for ourselves, when we could instead have the experience of a thought that comes and goes, like a cloud in the sky or a weather system.
So what is, I know the work has a specific kind of format that people follow in order to evaluate the stories and the thoughts that they have. Could you walk us through what that is, and then maybe give us some really practical examples of how that can be used with a thought or a story that comes up.
Yes, absolutely. The work is 4 questions and up to 3 turnarounds, and I'll describe all of those elements. We do the work when we notice that we're suffering. So anything in your life that, as Byron Katie, the originator of the work, says, anything that you don't love, you can do the work on. You acknowledge that you're judging it, acknowledge that you're telling a story about this circumstance, this person. So you notice and acknowledge that you're telling a story that is creating suffering, and then you investigate the story, no matter what it is. On her website, which is thework.com, there is a list of universal beliefs. And I find those are a really great place to start, because that list of beliefs, such as, I need your love, you shouldn't have done that, I need you to approve of me, I want more. These are succinct sentences that normally, that until you know the work, you take for granted as just like how it is here on earth. We want, we need, we want love, we want approval, we want to be understood. And we think it's normal. And it is normal insofar as everyone does it. But the work alerts us to the fact that these things cause suffering. These little sentences that we attach to create suffering. So one of the most popular beliefs around here is, I need you to approve of me. And so let's just take that as an example to take to the work. So before we start doing the work, I ask my clients to imagine vividly a specific instance of when you wanted someone's approval. Morgan, can you think of a time? And you don't have to say it out loud if you don't want to, but can you put yourself in a moment when you were wanting approval that you didn't think you had? Okay. So put yourself in that moment, in the chair, standing opposite the person, in the driver's seat, wherever you were, be in that moment. And this is what I call returning to the scene of the crime. So we return to the scene of the crime and we examine the crime scene forensically through these 4 questions and the turnarounds. So the first question of the work is, I need your approval. So here's me, Morgan, with the other person in my mind who is not approving of me in this moment, which is what creates the desire for it. So here I am, not getting approval, and I believe the thought, I want it. I want your approval. Is it true? Is it true is the first question. And the answer is yes or no. Just yes or no, no explanation, no but. It's a simple binary. Very often people want to explain. They say, well, no, but, and then they'll give the explanation. When that happens, I ask people to commit to just a yes. Like, you can have your yes. I want your approval. Yes, I do. And then I ask them to feel. How does it feel to want something that you're not getting from someone over whom you have no control, no
So
real
can I
control.
ask a question here? So are we
Yeah.
asking, is the want what we're investigating, or the belief that we need it? Like,
Well,
because that feels different too. Like I could say yes, it's true that I want it. Well,
mhm.
maybe it's already working.
Okay.
Okay.
It's already working, right? So yes, there is a difference between want and need. And if you, as if you're my client and you say, well, no, but I feel like I need it.
Hmm.
Like, um, need is often about being okay. Like, I want something. I can want it, but it doesn't feel existential. It just feels like a desire. Whereas if I feel like I need it, people often experience it as I cannot be okay unless I have it. So for me, that's the quality of difference between want and need. And if I'm doing the work with a client and they say, but I need it, then I'll say, okay, so let's switch. Let's go to I need your approval because that's creating suffering too. So, so when you commit to yes, you feel it in your body. If you commit to no, you feel that in your body too. So if the answer to question number 1, is it true, is yes, then we go to question 2, which is, can you absolutely know or be certain that it's true? So obviously you're getting another pass at this.
Are you sure? That's
Are
what it
you
feels
sure?
like.
Well, I think of this as the God's eye view. You know, take another perspective, take a larger perspective. Can you imagine someone not believing it's true? Can you imagine that God, you know, would believe that this is true? So question 2, can you absolutely know or be certain? Just if you've said yes to question 1, it invites you to have another pass from a different perspective. And if the client says, yes, it's true, then we'll dig a little deeper. Depending on how it feels. Like if it feels to me like the client is just clinging because they want to have their way, then we'll carry on doing the work. And because the rest of the work will continue to open up as we investigate the thought further. But sometimes if they say yes and yes for questions 1 and 2, then we'll dig deeper for an underlying thought. Because in the work, we don't question facts, we question judgments. So a judgment is a story that I tell about this set of facts.
If you followed my work for any amount of time, you know how much I love mindfulness-based tools that are backed by science. I've created a lot of things over the years having to do with mindfulness, meditation, just habit development. I've never really had a place to house them all in a way that is easily accessible. Well, I created a resource vault and I wanted to give you access to all the things that I've created. So in this resource vault, there's guided meditations, a meditation course, a habit tracker, a list of 55 books that will change how you think, journal prompts. All of these things are in my resource vault and they are free. If you go to morganmatzinger.com/vault, you will get access. Okay, back to the show.
So, Morgan, in your case, can you absolutely know or be certain that you want this person's approval?
No.
Okay, so now I am curious. How does no feel in the body?
It feels a little bit destabilizing. Like, well, if it's not that, then what is it? And it feels a little bit confronting because I'm taking the power that I'm placing on this other person, and somehow like turning the lens back onto myself. And that feels also like a lot of responsibility. Like I'd rather just have this be like your fault. It's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. Well, does it feel does it feel okay to proceed even though you feel destabilized?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll carry on. So there's a criticism of the work that well, I don't know if the word is exactly coercive. Because of the repetition of is it true? Is it true? I think people often think or sometimes think that you have to say no. And so like you have to relinquish the thought. And so, but I do not experience the work as coercive. And if my client is resisting, is really not ready to admit this destabilization, to be destabilized, then we'll pivot. So for anyone trying this at home, this is there's no coercion here. These really are sincere questions, inviting the doer of the work to really look. That's what Byron Katie says. If someone is stumped, she says, just look. And when she says just look, what I imagine is that the answer is at the bottom of a pool of water. And then if I am calm in my body, then the water will be smooth and I can see down there. And so I don't think the answer so much as I see the answers that arise. So it maybe sounds a little esoteric or I don't know. It's a very right brain activity. It's very creative. The work is not an argument. I'm not prizing these thoughts out of your hand. I'm simply inviting you. I'm creating a safe space where you can look. So after question 1 and question 2, and question 2 is usually no, then we go to question 3, and question 3 is a really big question. It's how do you react? What happens when you believe the thought, I want their approval? And so when you ask this question, you are looking at how it feels in your body, what emotions arise, what behavior do you exhibit, what do you say, what do you do, and how do you treat the other person, and how do you treat yourself? So it's a really capacious question. Another criticism of the work is that it's very mental, it's thought work. But in question 3 and in question 4, all of you is invited to be witnessed, to be acknowledged, to be seen. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to ask you, Morgan, how do you react? What happens when you believe the thought, I want your approval, and you're not getting it? So first of all, how does it feel in the body?
It feels a bit frenzied, like the image that came up in my mind is like piranhas, like like
Okay.
like it feel and it also kind of feels angry.
Okay, so frenzy, I love that. It's so a mental image of a frenzy, a feeding frenzy of carnivorous fish. So and so the body feels frenzied. Emotions include anger, as well as stress, I'd wager,
Yep.
with the piranhas.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling that anger and frenzy, what do you do, Morgan, in this moment with this person who's not approving of you?
So it's interesting when it, like, for me, it's not a person, it's an institution. And so I had to, like, as I was doing this, I had to almost like personify the institution and then make them look like whoever would be a representative of the institution, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, what is my behavior then when I feel like that? I feel almost like how I'm sitting right now. I feel like kind of like an obstinate, like, like I'm not fine. I'm not going to talk to you. Or, I don't know, like almost just like cutting myself off from that person, so that I can just be alone with my frenzied piranhas and my anger, and then I can just be over here and like stew about it by myself.
Yes. Yes. So good. So you cut yourself off. You, that obstinacy, how old do you feel?
Oh, I feel like 4 or 5.
Okay. Right. Okay. So you feel like a child and you act a little bit like a child, powerless. Like a child's power is in resistance, right?
Yeah, it's like
I'm not gonna.
that's the only one they've got, really.
Yeah, right. So, so when you are feeling all of that, obstinate, like a child, frenzied, angry, how do you treat other people?
I get really like snippy with them and don't really like let them in on what's going on with me. I think that there's probably a lot of like guessing on their part, like what did I do wrong?
Right.
And I can't seem to get myself out of that feeling enough to like redirect kind attention on the other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And so you're feeling all of that angst and you're expressing confusedly with other people. And so, how are you treating yourself? And Byron Katie asks simply, are you being kind to yourself? Are you being friendly to yourself when you're believing this thought?
No.
No. So, does this thought create stress or peace?
Stress.
Okay. So that is question 3. It gives full expression to all parts of you. How you feel in your body, what emotions arise, and what are the consequences to your body, to your relationships, to who you are in the world when you are believing this thought that argues with reality. Like in this moment, I want your approval because I think I don't have it. So I'm arguing with reality. You got to give it to me, right? So that's question 3, where people see the consequences of that kind of thinking on themselves, on their relationships, on their life. So then at this point, I typically invite people to take a deep breath because they've gotten kind of knotted up as they reflect on it. So I invite people to take a deep breath, roll out their shoulders, center themselves in their bodies again. And now question 4 is, who would you be without the thought? So in the exact same moment, what would be different if you were living this exact same moment without the thought, I want your approval?
I am so surprised by immediately the tears that sprung to my eyes. Um, it because in the same way that I articulated that for a child, the obstinate like is all they have.
Yeah.
I think the tears came to my eyes because who I would be without that thought is powerless. Like that is the only shred of power that I have when I'm in a state where I need approval that I'm not getting. And so to let go of that feels like, well, then I really have nothing. And it's like
Okay.
immediately the piranhas were like, when you were asking that question, who would you be without that thought? Like immediately, like my piranhas went belly up, like this pond of like dead piranhas on the surface. Okay, brain, whatever you're doing, it's fine. But and that like maybe that's what it feels like is like if I don't have this feeling, then I will feel nothing, which is like dead.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So I'm just going to ask you. I mean, are you comfortable proceeding? Are you comfortable if I ask you a follow-up question? Okay. So I invite you, Morgan, to close your eyes and be in that situation again where you're feeling the lack of approval, believing that you need it or want it. And you decide to just drop this argument with reality. And you just breathe into this. Breathe into the presence of lack, if that makes sense. Just don't resist it. Surrender. And notice what happens in your body. So, when you allow this moment to be without resistance, what do you feel in your body?
When you said something about, I don't think you worded it like this, but this is how it landed for me was stop fighting with reality. Immediately I felt this like wave of like laughter and curiosity come up because it made me realize that the holding on to that thought and that story, no matter how frenzied and angry it feels, is still just an illusion. Like that's still based on something that's not real.
Yeah.
And so asking to like drop it isn't so much me then saying like, well, then I'll have nothing. It's that I never did have anything. Like that's the joke. Oh, that feels really delightful.
Oh, wow. Advanced student, Morgan, you
Oh
are.
yes, A plus. I just got your approval. Yay! That's what I was looking for.
Oh gosh, I played right into your hands. No, but that's the joke.
That's the joke.
In coaching, we we're always looking for that movement of energy that comes through tears or laughter, but we always feel it in the body first. And so that's why I asked you, what do you feel in your body? So, so with that laughter, let's hold here for a moment. So there you are in that situation. You've dropped the argument with reality. The laughter is rising up. And what emotions arise with it?
It feels delightful. Like this other person or this personification of an institution is no longer an authority, but is a peer. like
Mm.
in the sense of like, oh, we're both human. Like I felt myself like
Mm-hmm.
going and like putting my arm around it, like, oh my god, like look at this funny thing that like we're in
Wow.
together. Like, isn't this hilarious, this like life that we're in, and that we're like playing this game together where you get to be the boss and I'm the one who's like, can I please have this thing? And it's not
Yeah.
actually like that. That's what it felt like, was like, oh god, that's so funny. It's so
Oh,
funny.
oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. So I would, then my next question was going to be, so I just go through the same questions that I asked about question 3. So
Mm.
with the thought, what do you feel in your body? What emotions arise and what do you do? I ask the same questions for question 4. Without the thought, what do you feel? What emotions arise and what do you do? And so you answered that already. It arose instinctively. You treated the other person like a peer. You put your arm around them as if to bring them in on the joke.
Mm.
And and then the last question I asked for question 4 is, what do you see that you couldn't see before?
Hmm.
Because when we have beliefs, you know, a belief is a concept that we apply to a situation that helps us to make quick sense of it. But when we apply the filter, the concept, the filter, it filters out information that would be good to have. It'll give us a clearer picture.
Hmm.
So it filters out information and highlights other information. That's what concepts do. So we can make quick sense of something. So when we remove the filter, which is the thought, then what do you see? And what I heard you say is that you saw the joke. Is there anything else that you see that's, that you'd like to presence?
Oh, I see that I get what I'm really longing for, which is the connection. That the anger and the frenziedness and the like, I'm not tucking this in, like really
Mm-hmm.
becomes a barrier to the thing that I really want, which is
Mm-hmm.
to have connection with other people.
Wow, man, that's beautiful. Okay, so are you ready for the turnarounds, Morgan?
Yeah.
Okay, so those were the 4 questions. And now the next phase of the work is turnarounds. We turn the statement around to its opposites. And we turn around 3 different ways. The first way is to the opposite. So, I need your approval. Forgive me. Are we doing I want or need? I think I got confused.
Oh. Um. Let's do need.
So the first turnaround
Mm.
is to the opposite. So I don't need your approval, is the first turnaround. I
Mm.
don't need your approval. How might that turnaround be just as true, if not truer, than the original thought?
I think if I hadn't gotten to the point where it felt like a joke,
Mm-hmm.
that I would have been much more resistant to saying, like, oh, of course I don't need your approval is much more true.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, because people who are familiar with the work can sometimes use it to hurt themselves.
Mm.
Like they don't do it on purpose, but they want to be quick.
Yep.
And so they go, oh, there I am believing I need your approval. And then they just go to the turnaround directly without going through those 4 questions. And then the turnarounds end up feeling like abuse.
Mm.
And if a turnaround feels like abuse, then take a breath, take several, walk away, and then go through the 4 questions. So I don't need your approval. Let's look for 3 pieces of specific, believable evidence that you don't need their approval?
The things that come up are all the things that stay the same regardless of my status, I guess, in their eyes, whether I'm approved or not approved.
Such as?
Such as I have my children. I have a beautiful relationship with my children. That is completely independent of the approval of this person.
Yes. Yes. So may I just say that, as I mentioned earlier, when we're doing the work on a need, it tends, the way I think of it is, in order to be okay, I need blank. And so what you just demonstrated is, I can be okay without this. I still have this. I still have this. I still have that. And so that is specific, believable evidence that to be okay, you don't need that. This thing that you think you don't have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what is one more piece of evidence? I think you've given two so far. So what is another piece of evidence that you don't need their approval to be okay?
I still have the ability to find approval somewhere else. It's a double-edged sword there, but I think the point that I'm trying to make is like this is not a stopping point. Life will still continue, and there will still be other opportunities for me to, like, not so much like with the approval thing, but to get the thing that the approval would be a doorway to. I have more opportunities to still pursue those things.
Yes. So now I like to know, how are you feeling in your body as you find the evidence that you're okay regardless of approval from that source?
Mostly much lighter. I still feel like a thread of tethering to that belief still, which is fine. Like, it feels better now to just be able to recognize that as like, maybe an indication that, yeah, like I'm dealing with this sense of needing approval in this situation, but it probably is tied to something much, much deeper rooted, and that's okay. Like, I can just let that be there right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Like, lighter is typically what people feel by this time. And so let's carry on with more turnarounds and see if we can find some more lightness in them. So we also turn around to the self. So in this case, because this is an I statement, it's I need my approval. How might it be truer, just as true, if not truer, than the original thought? I need my approval.
It feels like a very necessary foundation to being able to accept approval from anybody else. Because if the approval from someone else means an abandonment of myself, then that approval will never feel good, and it will never feel like enough, because I'll know that it wasn't aligned.
Right. Oh, that's so wise. This is the prize. My own approval is the prize. It is the prerequisite for receiving, in a healthy way, approval from any other source. So your approval of you is the prize. And so, what is some specific believable evidence that when it comes to the situation with this institution, I need my approval?
Are you asking what that feels like? Or what?
No, I'm
The
asking
evidence.
for the evidence.
That I need my approval. I'm having trouble sifting through what's coming.
Would you
Um,
would you like some help?
yeah, please.
So, I would be looking for, have I, did I do, you know, did I do my best? Did I hold anything back? Did I do myself proud? Is this in integrity? Or am I, seeking approval from this institution because this is what my culture thinks is the best thing? So that's where I would be looking. Am I in integrity? Did I do myself proud?
It's really interesting that a lot of the other questions, the intuitive answer was revealed pretty quickly without a lot of evaluation. But this one, it feels like it's obscured, and I wonder how much of that just has to do with receiving messages for so long that this self-approval actually is an indication that you're doing something wrong.
Oh boy.
Like you can't trust yourself, and that feels hard to try and. This one feels this is a difficult one.
Wow. Well, I love your self-awareness. And so if that came up in a session, doing the work or in a coaching session, we would definitely go back to it. We would go back to it in another work session or another coaching session. Because, sometimes something shows up at the surface and it is just like the fruit of a deeper root. So that's great awareness. Okay, well, how about we go to the next turnaround? We turn it around the final way to the other, where we swap object and subject. So it becomes, they need my approval. How might that be just as true, if not truer, as the original thought?
It feels like a recognition of the interdependence of all of us. Like the institution's program relies on smart, capable people being part of it. And so in that sense, like there's this reciprocal nature of that, which feels really nice.
Yeah. Well spotted. Well spotted. There's they are nothing if you don't want them. If they don't have the approval of you and other smart people, where are they? They need you. So that is the work, Morgan. So what are you taking away from this episode of the work?
Oh, I really like that you pointed out that people who, it may not even be necessarily like a real familiarity with the work, but who are familiar with something like what would be presented in like cognitive behavioral therapy, where, well, and because we have a very left brain dominant culture that we live in, it's really easy for us to be like, what's the most optimized way I could do these like questions for myself? And so we zip through purely from a logical perspective. And then, like you said, like we can get to these points where we're doing these turnarounds and we're not actually feeling the truth of it in our body. We're actually still just almost making like pros and cons list in our mind and trying to convince us of things that our bodies know is not true yet. So that's like a big takeaway for me, is slowing down, slowing it way down, to be able to feel into each of these questions. And a long time ago when you and I were talking, I feel like it was shortly after we first met, you said this phrase that has really stuck with me, and that is, sometimes you need someone else to help you break the spell. And so I think an important thing for me is to remember to do these types of exercises with someone else, because I can, it almost is like the difference between a guided meditation and a meditation that you're doing by yourself. Like sometimes it's just, it's easier to offload having to think through the next steps onto someone else, so you can really just be present with how you're feeling about whatever you're doing.
Yes, indeed. And the work is a meditation. So slowing down is kind of the point. Mindful contemplation of the truthfulness of something, of a thought, the consequences of that thought, and the freedom and clarity that's available without the thought. And yeah, when someone else is holding the space for you and facilitating the work, people tend to go deeper than they do when they're self-facilitating. I do the work most days. And so it is for me the most, it's like for me another dimension. Like I can step outside, I step outside this time and I go into like a crystal palace or something where, the questions come and they sort, as Byron Katie says, the work does you. But I've been doing it for 15 plus years as an almost daily meditation. And it is, I can get really judgy. Everybody, I like most people. And I can really enjoy chewing on my judgments for a while. I love, that righteous indignation. And sometimes I'm reluctant to part with it.
Yeah.
Because it feels powerful. And I'm not ready to let it go. But when I am ready to let it go, the work helps me to, well, I am ready to let it go. The work doesn't take it from me. The work dissolves it. I also think of it as so many metaphors, but it's like pulling a thread. You start pulling the thread and it just keeps coming. And then you have just a little pile of thread and freedom.
There's this joke about how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb. Just one, but the light bulb wants to have to change. And I think that's that's true for like any of these types of interventions, is like if you're not actually on board, if you don't actually want to do it, that's when we really can like harm ourselves. Because
Yeah.
that, I mean, another just a funny quip that I like is like, if change is so easy, then do it yourself. Like if
Yes.
I'm like, why isn't this person changing XYZ thing? Like there's enough here. There's enough here in myself to work on. I don't need to be demanding that the reality around me changes in order for me to feel better. And I think that's what I like about the work and about some of these other tools is it's all about the thing that you actually have some semblance of control over, which is what's happening in your own psyche.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And Byron Katie says the same thing that you just said. Like, if it's so great, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you and I did the work on an I statement. I need your approval. Katie recommends that we judge other people. So, for example, you should approve of me. But she advises that we do that because we see other people so clearly. But when it comes to us, we can get pretty confused. We can get, I think of it as like getting into a hall of mirrors where, like you alluded earlier in our conversation to, not being socialized to not trust yourself. And so, but we definitely see other people really clearly. And as you saw in the turnarounds, we always get to the turnaround to the self. Like, he was mean to me. He shouldn't have done it. Turns around to, I shouldn't have done it to myself. Or I was mean to me. And again, don't go there until you've done the work. Because again, if it feels like abuse, then the tool, then we're abusing the tool. The tool is for our freedom. It's for our clarity. As I was talking about concepts and how they place a filter over reality, highlighting certain aspects of the circumstances and obscuring others. The thing that the work does is it just helps us to see clearly without those preconceived notions, without projections from the past or fears about the future being projected onto this moment or this person. And, again, thoughts are impersonal. This is what the brain does. It's a predictive organ. It's metabolically efficient to just like know what's going to happen all the time. And like, oh, I know what's going on here. Shorthand. But it's not always correct. And the way we know that we've got it wrong is we suffer. And so Katie says that suffering is an alarm to tell us to do the work.
I love
That's
that.
So,
Yeah.
So that's where people ask, well, where do I start? How do I do it? And that's the answer. Well, what don't you love? In my coaching school, we just ask the question, what's your area of least satisfaction? What do you like the least in your life? And so we just start there.
That was actually like the first follow-up question that I wrote down. When there's a lot to work with, where do you start? And I think maybe more to the point is that it's just important to start somewhere. So,
Yes.
if I'm like, oh, there's like these 10 things in my life that all feel really terrible and there's a lot of suffering. So how come I can't just work on all 10 of them right now? Or we're becoming paralyzed by feeling overwhelmed with how many things are, or feel like they're causing suffering. And I think the important answer is to just pick one and start, because there is something about the forward movement where you start to discover things about yourself that you didn't know yet until you started to move in that direction, and then other things came to the surface. And also,
Yes.
I mean, as I found just in therapy, that everything is interconnected. So if I'm talking about this one thing that feels like it doesn't have anything to do with this other thing, through working and talking about it and uncovering things, we see that often it comes back to the same root beliefs.
Spot on, spot on. Have you heard the phrase, how we do anything is how we do everything? Yeah, it sounds like a sentence, but I don't think it really is a sentence. I think it's like just showing us that patterns repeat.
Yes.
And if we can intervene in one of those expressions of the pattern, we impact all of the other expressions of the pattern. And so I always start with what hurts the most. And often if I can get some clarity and freedom from the thing that hurts the most, then it ameliorates the other things that hurt, or just lightens my load. And also finding freedom and peace in one area of your life increases your feelings of agency and power, which, are corrosive to suffering. When I experience, I can have freedom from this thing that I've been suffering over because I can't control it. When I can be free and at peace with reality as it is, then I feel better, and that I feel better about myself and my capacity, my ability to meet life on its own terms. And I find that tends to shrink other problems. So there's a lot to be gained, as you say, from just starting.
Yes. So my second question is that it seems to me like one of the, maybe it's not the paradox, but what I think some people struggle with this idea of non-attachment, or finding these tools that help us to find peace within ourselves, that what that means is inaction, or what that means is like then convincing ourselves to stay in unhealthy circumstances way longer, because we're like, well, I should develop the skill of like being cool with like whatever happens. And so how do we keep that, how do we keep things like doing the work and creating inner peace from leaking over into inaction, or like even something like social justice work or something like that, where it's like, well, I should just be like zen about everything, and I'll find the peace within myself, which means that I don't need anything to change. I'll figure out how to like just be okay with all sorts of different types of abuse or injustice.
I think there is there's a popular belief in the world that you need to be angry in order to get things done. But what are some things, Morgan, that love has moved you to do?
Well, this podcast for sure.
Do you have to be angry? Do you have to be angry to care for your children?
No, I'm better at it when I'm not angry.
Yeah. And I think the most powerful, I mean, we can think about it in our own lives, how much stronger a force love and clarity is. When I'm clear, I'm unstoppable. I don't have to be, anger actually obscures my clarity. Anger is a potent short-term force, but corrosive long-term. So we can think about it in our own lives, how much more powerful and enduring action motivated by love is. Love and clarity, both, which we find more of in the work. But we can also look at movements in history that were motivated by love. And they're the ones that we look to. I'm thinking of Martin Luther King, who was influenced by Gandhi, who was influenced by Jesus. These were real warriors of love. And when I think about the things historically that have been motivated by anger or aggression, and they cause so much destruction and don't really resolve. They just keep going. Didn't Martin Luther King say, it was something like, he talked about, what do you put in circulation? Like, are you putting love in circulation, or are you putting anger in circulation? If you're putting anger in circulation, it's going to wreak some havoc and it'll come back on you. So it is my experience, and I'll be really specific. So historically, love is a very powerful force. Historically, clarity, like, this is not okay, things need to change because we deserve better. That's much more powerful than you suck. And you owe me. But in my own life, I'll tell you that I work with parents. I work with everybody, but I have a lot of parents in my practice. And I encourage parents to judge their kids. So in the work, Byron Katie has a tool called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. So we're told that we're not supposed to judge. We're not supposed to judge our neighbor, but we all do. And so this is called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And so when you have a problem with a person or a situation, when you don't love it, you write down 6 different judgments on that same situation. And I'm telling you, I have 2 children who are now 21 and 23. And when they were teenagers, I judged them like crazy. I literally wrote down my judgments in the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And because when I would find us at odds, and I wanted to overpower them because I'm the parent and I know best, but that didn't work. I was putting anger and control in circulation. And because I love them so much and our relationship is the most important thing to me, I realized, okay, I'm the parent. I'm the one who needs to find a way to put love in circulation here because that's what I want in our relationship. So I go up to my room and I write out a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, and I do the work on every single thought that I've written down in that worksheet. And this has happened over and over and over again. And of course I do it with my husband too. I write down my judgments. I give free rein to my pettiness and my anger. I let it all be expressed. I don't tell myself I shouldn't feel these things, because I do. I'm not going to win that war with reality. So I write them all down and I investigate each one, and I get a little clearer and a little clearer and a little clearer with each statement, as each statement unravels. And then what happens is I'm able to then go downstairs and re-engage my children with clarity and love, and they are attracted to me. They want to be with me. They want to talk to me, and I'm able to speak the truth, to speak, a boundary or a rule, or give them feedback. But when I do it from that place of clarity and love, they say, okay, Mom, and so that is a much more, clarity and love are much more potent forces than anger.
More sustainable too, because we know what chronic stress and anger does to the body and the mind.
Yes.
And so it really, I don't know, it's helpful for me to remember that it's in my best interest to do this work, because of the real physical and mental implications and consequences of not doing it.
Right. So it's like in question 3, how do you treat yourself? When you continue to stay attached to this thought, when you believe it in this moment, is it kind to you? Is it friendly to you? Is it kind to others and friendly to others?
I really like that that she has the judge your neighbor worksheets, because to me it's like there's so much to be said for telling the truth about how we feel, even when it makes us look really bad.
Yes.
Like that has to be the first step. There's, this is such a silly example, but my daughter and I are reading this young adult fiction series right now. It's the Lunar Chronicles, for anybody who wants to get into it. She's 14 and I'm 41, and we both really, really enjoy it. So there's something to be said for that. But there's in the very first book, it's like this fun, like modern twist on the Cinderella story. And so this Cinderella is like part cyborg. And she has this, because her nervous system is like also wired up with, like literally wired up with some computer processing things. She, in her vision, when someone is lying, she gets a little orange light in like the corner of her vision. Nobody else can see it, but she can see it. Even if she doesn't know what the lie is, she knows that they're lying. And I've been like, I can't stop thinking about this, like this idea of how much we need to become attuned to that light for ourselves. Like it's a really powerful thing for us to recognize when that little orange light of suffering comes up. And maybe we don't know yet what it is that doesn't feel good or why it doesn't feel good, but could we trust that enough to say something's not right here, and I'm worth not continuing to be in this state of suffering? Like it's worth it to slow down long enough to ask these questions and to figure out, and maybe to my point about asking, like, is the dark side of this that then we stay in situations longer that we shouldn't be in because we're like, I should just figure out how to be okay with it. It's like the clarity, like you said, that comes with doing this work. Then we're able to separate out what we're contributing to the suffering by our thoughts, and what is happening to us that is unjust or that shouldn't continue. But unless we actually slow down and do that work, it's really difficult to like tease those apart, to find out what I'm responsible for and what I'm not.
Yes, you're exactly right. And sometimes I think it is a process. People can use the work as a kind of sanctuary from confrontation. Like, I'll just have enough peace to not be suffering so that I can go on and do other things.
That's what I do.
Oh, so do I, Morgan. So do I. But it can be a process. Change, it can be a process. And for me, there have been things in my life that, like, I did the work on something that happened, a trauma from my childhood. I did the work on it for 12 years.
Hmm.
And I did the work on different aspects of it. And then one day, 3 years ago in March, it just came down like a house of cards. It was like I pulled one thread, which I saw was attached to another thread, which was attached to another. And it was like I finally got the foundation and I just pulled the whole thing. And so it was 12 years of work, of doing the work on this trauma, and just different. It would be triggered in my contemporary life, and I would think, oh, it's that thing again. And so I would go back to the work and do the work on some other element or aspect of it, and I would feel better. But I knew that it wasn't done yet, but I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know where else to go with it. And then another injury or insult would arise that triggered this trauma. And so I'd go back. And so it took 12 years, but it was complete when it was complete. And I want to, make another comment that's adjacent to this, which is when I don't know, when I feel that or see that orange light of suffering, if I don't know what is the problem, I will ask, what am I afraid of? And I find that's a question that gets to the heart of things quickly. And then one other comment is that some people will resist doing this process of the work because it takes too much time. They don't have time. And I found that it's actually much more efficient to take care of it as soon as possible. It's kind of like, how much more effort does it take to carry the 50-pound ruck versus just set the ruck down and go on your way, and the psychic weight of suffering, it drags us down. And we don't count that cost. We count the cost of how much time does it take to do this, to do the work, to do one thought, or to, God forbid, do a JYN. They're so long. But once you've done it, then you have clarity, which, it's like, it's the opposite of a rock. It's like you've got wings instead.
I appreciate so much that you shared that you being so proficient and regular with using this tool didn't mean that some of these things are easy to unravel. Like you said, like having it take 12 years. And my thought is those 12 years are going to go by anyway. So why not take the time to change what's going to happen on the other side of the 12 years? And, speaking about it from like a purely physiological perspective, it makes so much sense why it may take a long time for some of these like neural pathways that were laid down early and reinforced regularly to change. Like that because what is happening isn't just, oh, I'm just thinking about it differently, because thoughts don't just appear somewhere in your brain. It's all about networks. Like if we consider, like if I have a memory from when I was 5 and I was eating Cheerios and I got in trouble because I didn't want to finish my soggy Cheerios, that's not a memory capsule somewhere in a part of the brain. What's activated is something in your olfaction, because like I can smell the Cheerios, and
Yeah.
another in your language center, and another in the part of your brain that processes imagery. So it's
Hmm.
like we have to understand thoughts as this network of cause and effect, and these dominoes, like these things
Right.
trigger these things, trigger these things. And so I've just found that like the more that I understand about how this actually is happening in our brain and bodies, it helps me be so much more patient with
Hmm.
sometimes things that take a long time, like you said, like, oh gosh, here I am again, like struggling with the same thing. Look, of course you are, because of how it actually works in your brain, and the consistency of doing the work is what slowly changes those patterns. And so then
Yeah.
it's like you get to 12 years and all of a sudden it happens. But it's
Hmm.
because of these little teeny tiny tweaks and changes and new neural connections all along the
Hmm.
way that in an instant there was a recognition of the full pathway that has been changed. And that's like,
Yeah.
it's a really helpful way for me to remember how things actually do change in our brains and our bodies when it comes to something that feels like, why am I still thinking this thought? Like, why am I still struggling with? Well, of course you are. Like, there's like real
Yes.
reasons why that's happening.
Yes. I thank you for that, the neurological explanation. And and please correct me if I have the neurology wrong or the neurobiology wrong, but it is my understanding that to the mind there's no difference. To the brain there's no difference between real and vividly imagined.
Mm.
And so, you know, I I think there is so much to be gained by revisiting these instances of insults and injury. When we realize we're suffering, go back to the scene of the crime,
Mm.
investigate it forensically, look at it from every possible angle, from every impact, and and you are, when you do that, when you are imagining going back there and seeing it differently and experiencing it differently in your body, you are doing something, something healthy. And perhaps, you're dismantling some element of the network that creates suffering in the present. Maybe you will respond differently to the next trigger.
Mm.
But there is so much value in that forensic examination. It's not just in the past.
Yes.
Things that have the past isn't past, as they say.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And maybe one of the best ways that I can illustrate that this is true is that, like, if someone says, how many shelves are in the cupboard where your plates are,
Mm-hmm.
most of us will visualize the cabinet being open and think, and like, oh yeah, my dishes, I have these dishes on this shelf and these dishes on this stuff. So okay, so there's three shelves. So what
Mm-hmm.
what actually happens, like if you were going to stick someone in a functional MRI machine, and
Mm-hmm.
that shows where blood flow goes, that indicates areas in your brain that are activated for a particular task,
Mm-hmm.
you would see the same motor areas as if you were going to that cabinet and opening the cabinet door and physically laying eyes on those shelves. Those same pathways are lit up if you're just imagining doing it. So I think that that's like real solid evidence that visualization really matters when it comes to things like this. And
Yeah.
that's why I think the slowing down and the visualization is what pulls us out of this left, what our left brain is really good at. If I'll try not to get in the weeds too much on this, but we should definitely be investigating the work more of Dr. Ian McGilchrist, because he says like everything that we know about the left brain and right brain is incorrect. He said, like people will say the left brain is like logical and very like structured and stuff. And he's like, no, that's not actually what it is. The left brain is all about the details and the minutia. The right brain is really good at the big picture. The left brain has the I just read this yesterday, that people who have damage to their language centers in the left hemisphere can learn to communicate by singing, because singing, even though it's still using words, operates in a different area of your brain than speaking does. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I think is so wild. So when we use visualization, we're using more of the right brain, like whole picture kind of thing. And that I think is really important for long lasting behavior change, is by pulling in visualizations. And it's when we slow down enough and really allow these questions to penetrate past what our logical mind is trying to answer, those images came up so fast, and are so tied to emotion. So I think that's like, okay, I'm like nerding out a little bit on this, but I think that's like,
sister.
That's why the slowing down and allowing the feelings to arise and the visuals to arise without any evaluation of, does this actually make sense for this? Like, it doesn't matter, it's there, so let it come up and feel it, and then express it and get curious about it. But I think that's like one of the most beautiful things about this work, is like how easily it can make those things available to me when in day-to-day life, like, not so much.
Yes, you're so right. And it is worth emphasizing, worth repeating, that the work is not a cognitive exercise. It is a meditation. It's meant to be comprehensive, not just thoughts, but emotions and physical sensations. It's something, it's not a mental exercise. It's in the body. The answers are in the body. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. This was so much fun to talk with you about this.
It was so fun.
Parting words or final thoughts?
Okay, a couple of thoughts. This is a book of dialogues of Byron Katie doing the work with people who come to her events. And so it's also available in audio. And so that's, when I read that book for the first time, I felt like the top of my head was coming off. And every time I read it, I would sort of look up after having immersed myself in the dialogues. I would look up and I just felt in love with life. So the work had me from hello. And I recommend the book. I think we are also, Byron Katie is very generous. Anyone can do the work. Anyone can use the work. And she has abundant resources on her website, which is thework.com. And so there are instructions for filling out a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, instructions on doing the work, and those universal beliefs that I mentioned, which I find so helpful if you're new to the idea that it's not your circumstances that cause you suffering, but your thoughts about your circumstances that cause suffering. So if you're used to just thinking thoughts and that's, and they're just true, then this is kind of bracing to read the list of universal beliefs. And then finally, this is about Ian McGilchrist. I have tried to read his book, The Master and His Emissary.
Oh, it's dense.
So dense. I have not been able to finish it. I've tried a few times, actually. So do you have any advice for me on getting through it?
Well, maybe not for getting through it, but like different ways of learning from him. So I just listened to a podcast interview with him that was so lovely, and he talks about his most recent book, which is thick and it's a lot. And so I appreciate even just being able to listen to an interview with him. There's also a really great documentary called The Divided Brain, is what it's called.
Okay.
So it's a documentary that was inspired by the book, The Master and His Emissary. Well, for everyone who's listening, you can find Allison, and if you want to work with her and be able to do with her what she so generously and graciously did with me on this episode by going through the work with me on these on this particular thought. You can find the links to everything in the episode notes. And for all of my listeners, before we go, P.S. we expire.